Hello. Before we get into this, I just want to mention that this is a sort of like side video to another video that I made. On my main channel, I made a video about my experiences living with autism, and this video is an extended version of the interviews that I held for that video that were intended for that video. So that video had to cut out some stuff because some people, Spice, yap a lot. So if you want to watch the interviews in their original context, then that's where it is. That's also where I explain all the sort of things that went on with the interviews. But if you don't care about that and just want to see all the interviews in full, then you can watch this as well. So, yeah, thank you, and we'll get right into it. Hello, Bolt Beam. So you know everything about the interview already. I've put all I'm such a stuttering mess, Jesus Christ. I put everything in the DMs, so you know what you're getting into, and then I can get into the questions as well. So the first one is, introduce yourself. What is your cultural background, age, when you were diagnosed, your special interests, just the general stuff.
Okay, hello, I am Boltbeam Studios. So cultural background, I am Hispanic and white, maybe a bit Italian, but Italy isn't real, honestly. I don't think Italy is real.
Yeah, none of Europe is
Age is
real.
15, I know. Yeah, age is 15, I know. Aiden talking of a minor, that's kind of crazy. I was diagnosed at age of 2, and I don't have too many special interests. However, I play Pokemon way too goddamn much. I think I need some help with that. If I'm out here traveling for that kind of shit, and yeah, it's clearly very autistic. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing
So
more
that's me.
autistic than traveling for Pokemon events.
No, it's traveling for Sonic conventions. That's the most autistic thing. I'm
But
sorry, all Sonic fans are autistic. I'm saying it right now.
yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as a non-autistic Sonic fan. Anyway,
Exactly.
what are your opinions on people who self-diagnose?
They should probably keep it to himself. Like, personally, like, most of the time I don't believe it's true when they do. I would like suggest like having them actually do it themselves. But if they keep their opinion to themselves, they'll be fine. Because I know like a lot of people who like openly say like, "Oh, I'm autistic," when they haven't tested. And to be honest, it kind of gets on my nerves. He's like, as an actually autistic person, this is one of the worst things to ever happen to me. And just like this, like, come on. At least go try to get an actual diagnosis, you lazy ass motherfucker.
Yeah, so I know you kind of described this a little bit in the last one, but would you consider your life better or worse without autism?
That is a really tough question. It'd be really different. I'd be like a way different person. I'd probably be doing different things. Like, I'm not sure if I'd still be doing Pokemon stuff to this day. I'm not sure like what friends I'd have. Like, I know I lost a lot of friends, and part of it was me being an autistic idiot. But at the same time, I know I made a lot of friends too through my autism, and or at least partially. And I know that my life would be way different. Not sure if it'll be better or worse. I don't like my life right now, but I know it could get better. So I think it's better with autism, though it's probably just for right now. I gotta wait till I'm an adult to see like how it really is.
Yeah, fair enough. And then a similar question, but I feel like it has enough of a difference. And do you think there should be a cure for autism?
Okay, autism isn't really like a problem that needs solving. However, I feel like if there's people who really want it, the option should be there. You know, like you could control if you could keep your autism or not. You should be able to. I mean, it's just like a transgender shit or being gay. Like, you don't have to be the one thing if you don't want to. With that said, I don't like changing your race, but but yeah, cure for autism, I'm perfectly fine with that. I wouldn't take it. However, if I understand why other people would, it's a pretty annoying thing. For me at least, I know it could get on my nerves a lot.
And then the next one is another question that's a little similar, but do you consider autism to be a disability?
No, it's just a difference. It's something that makes us different. Like, yes, some people are like really affected by it, and like they need more support. However, I don't consider it a disability. No, autism in and of itself is not a disability to me.
All right. And then, do you think autistic people should be accommodated by a wider society?
Yeah, probably because living as an autistic person is kind of ass because nobody accommodates for you, and you're put up to the same standards as quote unquote normal people. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you're some autistic people are just less capable of doing things, like certain things, and so yes, life should be like accommodated for autism in some form in our society. At least that's what I believe. I feel like that'd make living a lot not easier, but more reasonable in our
Mm-hmm.
society.
And do you think things have gotten easier for autistic people over the years?
Oh, definitely. Like a lot of people are getting diagnosed now. A lot of people are able to get like IEPs and stuff for that. It's real nice, or it's better than it was before. Like I mean, I know I'm not an unk, but I know before it was really bad. So now it's like better, and a lot of people are way more accepting of autism too. So that's really nice. Living an autistic person, it isn't easy. However, it feels easier than it probably could have been.
Mm-hmm. And then the last question I wrote down doesn't really apply to you, so I suppose I'll end the interview here. Yeah, thank you very much for answering these questions, Bolt Beam. Means a lot to have you helping me out with this project.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure to be on here. I was really excited for this because I feel like I never got to voice my opinions about autism so much. Because I don't talk about it a lot of people just because like I'm so self conscious about it all. But it's really nice to be here, like talking with a friend and just voicing my opinion. It's nice. I'm happy I have people to relate to, especially you.
Hmm.
You're the goat.
Yeah, I know you were very excited for this, and that made me all the more excited to do this as well. So I'm very happy I was able to do this.
Yep, me too, man.
Hello. So we're doing an interview now. Oh my god, it's the second one. How fantastic! And for this one, I'll be joined by Spice. And the first question that I want to give you is introduce yourself. What is your cultural background, your age, when you were diagnosed, and your special interests?
Okay, so I'm Spice. I'm 19 years old. I should be turning 20 sometimes later this year, but not quite when the video comes out. I just want to let you know about that. So, I've been diagnosed with ADHD and Asperger's around one of my toddler years, so around like 2-ish, 3-ish. In terms of interest wise, I am a competitive Mons player. I came from, let's say, Aiden's channel from around like 2023-ish, and then I've developed my way through to Mons through there. I'm also generally a sports person. I've played a bunch of football in my lifetime. I've played cricket. I currently play cricket right now. And I do a little bit of lifting. Other than that, I'm not. Minecraft, I guess, is a big thing. Those are like the three main things I'd say about myself: sports, Minecraft, Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of things. Um, but generally speaking, in terms of cultural background, my family is known. Okay, my family has a background in terms of like autism. At least in terms of my five potential like dash six relatives, five of which, no, four of which are in the spectrum, and one is believed to be on the spectrum but hasn't been properly diagnosed due to like some form of backlash. I don't know what's going on with that, but apparently, so 5 out of 6 would be considered at least on the spectrum,
All right.
varying from different levels.
And then my second question is, what are your opinions on people who self-diagnose?
So, this is about to get very personal. So, I feel the term self-diagnosis can be a little bit disrespectful sometimes because it can be seen as like a scapegoat for people who don't really think they have like the effort or the motivation to really strive to improve themselves. That being said, it's always worth checking in on identifying said problems. Let's say if you do have ADD, ADHD, or whatever the hell, you want to get that checked out as much as you can. Whilst it might be difficult in countries like the US, who don't really have the public healthcare to support these sort of needs. In where I'm from, the UK, the NHS has services to support the self like diagnosis and making sure that the problems are heard, and that's the big thing. No case should be left overlooked.
Mm-hmm. And then my third question is, would you consider your life better or worse without autism?
So, given with ADHD, it does allow me to like hyperfixate in a lot of places. Um, so again, as a Mons player, I've been able to work harder upon that sort of direction in terms of sports and coaching. I've been able to work harder because I'm more passionate about stuff, and I will work to the very like my socks off to make sure I'm able to get to those set goals. However, I've also found it worse. It's mainly been worse as I feel like there's a label attached to me in a lot of ways, in a lot of places. I
Mm-hmm.
think people treat me differently from being on the spectrum itself. Given that, oh, so this guy has ADHD, this guy has Asperger's, this guy isn't really a human. It sounds a bit extreme, but to be quite honest, people think that way. People really do think that way. People
Yeah.
think that, oh god, this person is incapable of doing everything. Hell, even the people inside my family think I can't do anything sometimes. It's genuinely sad when I say this because I think I have a lot to grow, basically. My main issue is right now I need that sort of guidance. I need feedback. That's my big issue at the moment. In these stages of life, I need feedback. But people often think, oh, I still need to be babysat, which is kind of dumb. It's dumb. When Because let's say I'm oblivious. That's my big thing. I'm oblivious as hell in terms of like directions and stuff. I could have followed directions, but I need to make sure I understand said directions, and that's another big part about it. Just the sort of complications and sort of heaps and heaps and heaps of, to be quite honest, bullshit that people tend to throw on me. Then it's rough, man. It's rough, but you gotta keep pushing on, making sure that you live the life as well as you can. And again, at the end of the day, I'm still not insane. I think there's a lot of time for me to develop out of that, out of this slump, out of this hole. And I think overall, with the sort of needs I have, I think eventually it will turn into a positive direction. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just currently in a bad slump right now. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. All right. So then my fourth question is: do you think there should be a cure for autism?
I think there's ways you can say for and against. If for four, it allows the individual to function in the world properly and may not be subject to disadvantages. In, let's say, one of my family's cases, let's just call him Connor. His name is not actually Connor. I just want to use the name Connor because just as a way of like keeping things relatively anonymous. But Connor here is considered one of the most autistic people in the country. He's non-verbal. He will not eat properly, basically, because he doesn't eat food. I mean, he eats food, but he doesn't eat. He eats like wood. He can eat metal. He's one of those kind of people. I think it's called pica. He's got pica. I don't think that's even relevant to the spectrum, but I just wanted to mention that. I mean, although it can link. Asperger's a little big thing. Can get very like agitated a lot of the times. But there's a lot of things to speak about Connor here. Connor, I think, should have the ability to be cured of autism, given the fact that because his case is so extreme, I think it would be beneficial for him to have the cure so he can function at least a more moderate life. However, in most cases, autism can be viewed as a superpower in a lot of ways. Having this having this like sense of autism allows them to function better. In a lot of cases, I think what you'll see throughout these interviews is some people will view autism as better because they're able to focus better on other tasks like hyperfixation and stuff like that. The neurodivergency allows them to gain like a certain personality, which I don't think if they were like considered quote unquote neurotypical, they would be, how do I say it, a lot more boring in their own rights. It makes them different. It makes them unique. And that's the big thing that a lot of people strive with autism. In terms of having another argument against it, it brings another label onto autism that it is viewed as a choice, much like with like quote unquote homosexuality in a lot of people's eyes. Um, the more traditionalist view, the conservative view. This really, and it also harms research in a lot of ways because many people would often disregard autism research because, oh, there's a cure for it. Why do we need to develop further? That sort of direction I fear because autism is a very, very unique case, and I think we need to study more about not only just autism itself, but like the brain and how autism like links in a lot of ways, like how it affects relationships, friendships, how it affects people's like cognitive function, how just that's just the main things really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I actually appreciate because Boltbeam was able to bring up the complexities of this topic as well. My ramble here is probably not going to make it to the video, but I feel like saying this anyway. The but I would actually say that my mind, because before my perspective was no cure, not at all for any circumstance, right? But hearing you and Boltbeam speak about how this is a lot more complicated and complex than it really than I made it out in my head, is a good thing for me to hear, right? That's why I'm happy I'm doing these interviews, because it allows me to have different perspectives which could potentially challenge me on certain topics.
Let's put it this way: nothing in this world is concrete. Nothing is black and white. Nothing. Everything is a spectrum.
I
A
agree.
lot of colors, much like with autism, might I add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like that's why the people I hate talking to most are people who are super far left or super far right. Both of them are so obnoxious to talk to.
I'm not really fussed about people being far left or far right or anything. What I need them to be is open-minded, making
Yeah,
sure they
exactly.
understand the situation around them and learn that, oh, okay, I could take pieces of information from him, even though I'm not exactly fully agreeing with him. I think there's information that is key that can help develop society as a whole. I think we shouldn't really be looking at sort of political spectrums, but more just
Mm-hmm.
as one group and how we can improve from there.
Yeah, because like there are a lot of times where like I may disagree with someone a lot, but they'll say something that I think is cool, and disregarding that I don't think is healthy for like our society, right?
I've had many experiences between people that I've not exactly agreed with them, but there's some parts of them that have like resonated with me in my mind to be like, okay, if I could take this forward in a future reference, I will be able to improve myself as a whole. And I think that's what we need to do as a collective, as a society. We need to grow ourselves to be better people, rather than just tearing us down apart constantly, constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess we can get into the fifth question now, which is, do you consider autism to be a disability?
It depends on how you interpret autism, to be honest. Some people it can be viewed as a disability because you're struggling in a lot of places when others who are neurotypical would be a lot more confident in where they function. For instance, if for me it's staying awake in class. A lot of people are able to just do that on the rip. Me, I cannot. I physically cannot. If someone is monotone as balls, if someone is like completely monotone and not exactly like and just more rambly in a lot of ways. Kind of how I'm doing it right now, but no. I love yapping too much, man.
Yeah.
Gotta respect it.
I mean, that's why
Anyway,
I'm friends with you, though. I know that
hey,
about
it's
you.
how it is, man. Yeah, it is, man. I appreciate you being around. But as I was saying, um, being monotonous means that it's more likely that people are just not going to pay attention or they're not going to really respect what you're going to do. Me, I don't really respect someone. I mean, I respect everyone, but I don't respect someone in that sort of way if they're just talking, not giving a chance for anyone to give their input, not giving
Mhm.
a chance for someone to really like sit down and listen and interpret the information. And that's a big thing. Um, Kind of gotten a bit off tangent there, but I think it can be viewed as a disadvantage because some people might not be able to go through the sort of experiences that a normal person can, that a neurotypical person can. However, it could also be viewed as a superpower to someone because of things like hyperfixation, where you'll be able to focus harder on stuff that you really and truly specialize about.
Mhm. And then my next question This is the fun one, baby. Do you think it's okay for autistic people, or even people in general, to say retard?
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I could not give two shits. I could not give two shits about someone saying the word retard, man. Um, for certain words that I won't mention or specify in the video,
Yeah, I don't want to get
that's
demonetized.
yeah, that's a lot more of a serious discussion, I think, because there's a lot more history and background related to said word. I think with retard, quote unquote, um, I it's a word which again it's a label. I don't necessarily like labels because saying someone is just retarded is a bit stupid. I mean,
Mhm.
because it's kind of it denounces them to being just this. Oh, I can't do anything properly. Like that's just dumb, man. Every sort of or every person, regardless of the regardless of where they are on the spectrum, has something to offer, and that's the big thing that I think people don't really understand properly. Um, that being said, retard is just a word where it's like it's just a word. That's all it is. It's just a word. If you use it in the wrong context, then again, that's where it gets into this argument where it's like, oh, you shouldn't be saying that.
Oh, of
But
course.
to be quite frank, it's a word. That's all. That's all it is to me.
Yeah, I feel basically the same way about it. Like, I feel a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more strongly about it because, like, I really dislike it when neurotypicals gatekeep the use of retard from retards, but
Oh, I see what you mean. People gatekeeping a word. You know
yes.
what annoys me a lot? The people who are, I remember like seeing a bunch of posts, through like TikTok and stuff back in the day that, oh, I go through she, you pronouns and you have like a word where you cannot say that only people who have pronouns of quote unquote she, you would be able to say. God, man, people just want to be put in a category. That's kind of why I think the self-diagnosis is a bit iffy at times. Going a bit off topic again, but it does link somewhat to the video itself. I think self-diagnosis in a lot of ways can, how do I say it? It's the difficulty of okay, they want to fit in, they want to be inclusive, but if they're not actually properly diagnosed, then it can be a bit difficult for a person to really understand what they're saying. Because again, a lot of things on TikTok. Yeah, I mean, hold on. Oh yeah, there's also on TikTok. I think there was someone who pretended that they were, how do I say it, like autistic.
Hmm.
What was it? What was it? Was it Tourette's? I think it was Tourette's. And then
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
people interpreted the video and copied off the person who wasn't even like diagnosed properly with Tourette's, but people like took in the information and started to have these like little tics, or they'd be able to, or they'd just be saying like "fuck," like just out of nowhere, like because of stuff they've interpreted from TikTok,
Hmm.
which is just like, man, that's just insanely disrespectful. And again, people just want to fit in at the end of the day. That's just what it is. Oh, I want to be different. That's just what it is.
Hmm.
That's stupid, man.
Yeah, I mean, in general, though, I just don't really get the whole wanting to self diagnose yourself with some sort of thing for attention on the internet. Because, like, as someone who actually has to live with autism, I'd say my life's not easy. Why would someone want to make their lives harder for the sake of fucking attention on the internet? It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I know several people from all sorts of spectrums that are like going through this sort of like situation and having it basically made a mockery through this sort of TikTok trend, might I add, back in like 2020 and stuff like that. And even from like companies, I don't think that really speak properly on autism. How Autism Speaks is a shitty company,
Oh, yeah.
and people really do not like put enough attention towards Autism Speaks just being this evil.
Yeah, because there are a lot of videos about it a couple of years ago, and then those just kind of faded into obscurity. So the only people who generally try to actively avoid Autism Speaks are people who, like, actually know their shit, which unfortunately isn't that many people in the grand scheme of things.
Hmm. I mean, again, it's just more they promote harmful stereotypes, which is a big thing. Because
Hmm.
again, I think Autumn Speaks views the entire thing is like black and white, and as I said, everything's a spectrum. Nothing is all just grayscale. Nothing is all okay. So either this or this. No, everything has some form of deeper meaning to it, and that's the big thing. Reducing autism as just this, how do I say it? I mean, disability, as a way of saying, oh, I'm just strictly worse if I have this compared to if I'm just neurotypical, and that's just like, damn, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah,
That's
so
just that's the bluntest way I could put it.
yeah. So then my next question is, do you think autistic people should be accommodated by our wider society?
It depends on where you're from, to be quite honest, because if you look at places like Eastern Asia or like Western Asia, countries like China, they have this like one. I mean, back then they had this one-child policy. It's now like two-child policy, I believe in it. I think it was 20. Let me do some research here, just mid-video. When did China?
This is
When
like
did
the biggest
China?
spicism I've seen ever.
I mean, hey, I want to make sure I'm right. That's all it is.
Yeah.
When did they? Okay, October 2015. They moved the one-child policy to a universal two-child policy. But before 2015, um, people would often kill their own children so that they can get the perfect person, basically.
Jesus
So
Christ.
you look you look at the statistics. I believe male to female ratio of Chinese people. I believe around 70% of Chinese people are. I think yeah. Okay, there's a sex ratio of 112 males to 100 females. Um, this means that basically because so many people back then just wanted boys, because so many people back then just wanted the smartest person around, the most successful person around, they would often drown their own kids, to put it bluntly. Um, and this would be the case if they had autism as well. That's another big thing. People with autism were disregarded in society because they weren't seen as perfect. Well, that why? Because there's been this like, how do I say it? People weren't aware of the existence of autism and like how autism really shapes the mind. That's a big thing that still needs research going forward, I think. Which we'll bring on to another point later on, question wise. But in terms of accommodation, because I kind of just went off topic there for a second, I think more knowledge should be spread towards autism between adults especially, but even like children. Again, just understanding the brain. I think that's something that needs to be understood more in society. I believe in places where autism is significantly, how do I say it, overlooked or undervalued, I believe there should be equity to help accommodate such disadvantages, basically. Making sure that they are able to live on the accounts of there are live on the accounts of okay, so I can function in society and be able to and have that additional support where I'm not able to succeed. I mean, isn't there something going on with Trump? Oh, no, no, wasn't Trump. No, hell, I think it was it so? Kurt Starmer in the UK. Um, I believe he cut the funding for disabled people, and that's stupid. That's disrespectful. I mean, like fuck, what the hell, man? I mean, people who are disabled, people who have to like resort to being on wheelchairs and stuff like that, they're disadvantaged in a lot of ways because there's a lot of places that don't accommodate for lifts. Like they don't have lifts. They don't have designated ways for people who are disabled to go up like ramps and stuff like go up staircases. Like there's a lot of staircases around, and that's difficult for people. Well, it's impossible for people with wheelchairs to go up really. Um, so to see the funding get cut in that sort of case for Kurt Starmer's, it's just it's a joke, man. It's a joke.
Hmm.
Not because I will never be a conservative. I will never be a conservative. I think those people. Okay, I say those people. I believe that sort of party, that political party, has gone too far in a way extreme that I just cannot really subscribe to a lot of the views. However, if there was one thing the Conservative Party did in the UK that I think was at least fine, or at least passable, is that they never really touched cutting down funding for things like disabled people, and that's a big thing to consider.
Yeah, it's actually
But
quite
yeah,
interesting listening to that take as well, because it gives me a wider perspective, and an ability to view things more complexly. I already discussed that too. These interviews have actually been really eye-opening for me. I've been really enjoying listening to what you guys have had to say.
you've got plenty of these for a reason. Everyone is entitled to having some form of opinion, regardless of how you view it, how you describe it. It's just more, how do I say it? You need to make sure these opinions, making sure that these opinions are constructive and making sure they help develop the ways of just open a discussion. Really, just making sure that I understand what you're saying. I could take that forward. I think I've described that a couple of times earlier, but it's to help society grow rather than just I beat this guy at an argument.
Yeah, it's a good mindset to have.
hmm
Anyway, the next question. Do you think things have gotten easier for autistic people over the years?
It's strange. It's strange. I think, how do I say it? So in the modern world, there's this general increased expectation through things like Instagram, Snapchat, and Tinder of, you have to be this perfect person. And if you're not this perfect person, you're just going to get tossed to the wayside. I mean, the delivered expectations that, you have to be 6 foot, you have to earn like 100K monthly income, you have to have an 8-inch penis. It's just that sort of stuff harms society because it brings those who are more vulnerable to a place where I don't belong in a place of society because people judge me for who I am, which is difficult. I think in those sort of in those sort of perspectives, having the increased expectations from things like social media can harm a person with autism or people on the spectrum who are neurodivergent. However, it has gotten easier in some places because there's a greater awareness towards autism. Whilst not perfect, it has definitely improved than just the write-off of you're just dumb. We've come a long way from those kind of days in the 1960s, 1970s. But I think there's still a long way to go for development that I think in 100 years' time, we're going to have a lot more understanding of things such as the human brain and the connection to autism and how we can interpret autism as more of a positive light given that there's a lot of things in neurodivergency that I think can be perceived as, how do I say, people who are neurodivergent can be better in a lot of ways than a neurotypical person is. But it's just we need to understand how said people are in a lot of ways. And I think the research done in the brain can really identify such issues. So at the moment, I would say no, but I think it's gotten harder, but I think it will become easier over time. I think I'm optimistic about that.
Yeah, so then my final question then is, has it become easier to live autistic as an adult?
To be quite honest, my adulthood has been very dog shit. Very, very dog shit. Um, Mainly because of the family related issues I've had, where it's kind of become increasingly demanding for me. Okay, I wouldn't say increasingly demanding, but it's more okay. So it's been more difficult for me to like thrive in a suitable environment. It's because of a lot of family emergencies I'm having to go through as well at the side. It's been difficult to really like keep at least a stable head, and I think it has caused me in a lot of ways as someone with Asperger's to really, how do I say it? It's difficult for me to keep a level head at the time, be kept level headed at times, and I think that has really been difficult for me especially in my adulthood. Even if I'm able to control it at times, I can't get everything right. That's just all it is. Sometimes I'm gonna mess up, and that's just life, really. People aren't perfect. People aren't going to have these sort of ways of, oh, I could deal with these things very calmly. No, I'm not like that. No one is like that. No one's meant to be like that. But I think it's been difficult for me, especially because of family circumstances, the constant demand I've been trying to keep up, trying to stay on track, even, let alone, how do I say it, getting above the rest. That's a big thing. I live in a rural place. I need a car. I need to. I mean, to be fair, that costs money. I need to be in a more stable place in terms of residency. I need to be able to connect to people more, and that's the big issue I have right now. Um, some people view this differently, but for me, I think it's become difficult because of circumstances like this, where I think I need to be in a better environment, and that's just what it is. But I believe it will be easier in the future, given that I'll be able to afford income. I'll be able to get a job or two. Um, Given that I'll have experience in a lot of departments, just offer out. For those who want a job, by the way, might I add, I'm not the greatest expert on this, but I try and reach out to people who, like, connections wise, who might give you roles in like part-time roles, and you can put them on CVs and stuff like that. And that should help at least slowly overcome the barrier of having 20 years experience straight out the womb. That sort of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
back on topic, has it become easier to live autistic life as an adult whilst being autistic? I don't think so. However, I'm optimistic in the future that it will become easier and I will be able to function in society like a normal person.
Yeah. All right, I'll say one thing for sure. I'm definitely rooting for you, man. I wouldn't be friends with you otherwise, but I think you got what it takes.
And as I said, I have faith in everyone. Everyone and anyone has a right to speak, a right to just have their freedom, have just be able to grow as a person. I think that's the big thing about it. I think
Mm-hmm.
people really underappreciate one another for what they think, what they say, and what they do. And I think as we grow as a society, I believe inputs from all forms of life, all forms of being, basically, will lead to us growing as a society, just overall.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly,
Yeah,
out of all the interviews we've done and will do, this will probably end up being my favorite one. I unfortunately probably won't be able to use like a quarter of it, I assume, because we're both yappers, right? But
let me say
this has
this.
definitely convinced me to release these separately on the Patreon. Like it's definitely worth doing that.
Can I just say, am I okay for mine to just be out public rather than being on Patreon? I want to make sure that people are able to see this in a weird way. I want people to what like take through this information rather than lock it behind a paywall.
Yeah, I don't mind putting this on the Uncut channel.
Yeah, that's fine. Perfect. That's just what I want. Appreciate it. Appreciate it
Yeah,
massively.
I'll release both on the same day probably. Just release this one like a couple hours after.
Yeah, that's fine. Sounds good. Sounds good.
But yeah, so I think that's all. So I'm gonna click the stop recording button now. Was good, my fellow Canadian. Will be hey, you should know
Hello.
the gist of the interview questions and like all the stuff that's all the technicality surrounding that through the messages I sent. So
Indeed.
we
I
may as
take
well
a
get
look.
into the first question then, which is introduce yourself. What is your cultural background, your age, when you were diagnosed, and your special interests?
All right, I'll go ahead with an order. So my cultural background is I am a French Canadian guy, which like yeah I'm doubling up in the under my note. Should this wait a minute? Should this be more serious or can I actually make jokes?
You can make jokes.
All right, let's reset that real quick because fucked up. I was unsure of the vibe of the video you were
You can go
on.
whatever you want, really. Just the general idea for this video is
Oh yeah,
be
you go.
yourself, and that's all you really gotta do.
Well, I'm French Canadian. I'm 23 years old. I was diagnosed back in second grade. It was really kind of it kind of changed how I saw myself really because because I used to I knew people think that I was special, but now I figured it out for myself. So it was weird and losing some old friends because to go to specialized classes.
Mm-hmm.
But my special interests are like yeah, like I'm an autistic gamer. What else? And I'm currently studying in cinema.
Yeah. So then the second question I have for you is, what are your opinions on people who self-diagnose?
There are two types of people who self-diagnose. Those who truly believe it and those who do it for attention. Unfortunately, the latter is much more common, I feel.
Yeah.
And yeah, the latter will really like take attention away from the actual problem because they believe autism, ADHD, bipolarity, or whatever is quirky, and it just isn't. It's not as great. It's not as great as they feel. Like if they believe it, if they act all like quirked up and shit about being autistic, ADHD, chances are they're probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Us
Yeah.
folks tend to keep it under wraps.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's definitely annoying when someone makes it like such a huge part of their identity and personality. Because like, I actively avoid trying to tell people in my personal life that I have autism.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe there is some people who like are openly admitting to autism
Mm-hmm.
and are actually autistic, but they're rare case most often than not. So well, usually I have my doubts.
Yeah. And then my third question is, would you consider your life better or worse without autism?
It's quite a hard question to say because it would require me to imagine what my life would have been if I wasn't autistic. But at this point, would I even be myself anymore?
Oh yeah, completely
Yeah,
agree with that.
like I'd say it's better because I try to use my autism as like as a way to influence my fellow artists to try to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't really talk about autism because after 23 years of experience, I just know how to human if I were to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do love being able to understand my autistic brothers and sisters and help them.
Yeah, I think that's a very good thing.
Thank you.
And then my fourth question is, do you think there should be a cure for autism?
A cure would imply that it's a plague.
Mm-hmm.
The only plague here is people who advocate for such cures.
Yeah. And then my next question is, do you consider autism to be a disability?
It depends because autism most autistic people cannot function in society because they have a light level of autism, but like I've seen like some high level of autism who despite all my help and like they were adorable. Like they could do stuff. They're clearly they had it harder than most.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it can be a disability.
Yeah, and then my next question, this is the fun one. Do you think it's okay for autistic people, or even people in general, to say retard?
I'd say if you're in a friend group that tolerates it, it's fine. But you should watch your tongue in case with people you might not know. You don't want to start any drama and
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I don't think autistic people should have any higher privilege to say it. Like because we are not retarded. That's the thing. The autistic people are not retarded to me, so they don't even apply. Like calling your fellow autist like you goddamn autist, yeah, that can be funny at times.
Mm-hmm.
But because the difference between one who like uneducated on the matter and like let's say a standard guy who just calls people autistic when he means to say stupid or dumb, is because they like the education or the experience with autistic people. So like they just go to the next buzzword to insult someone because stupid isn't spicy anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then my question after that is, do you think autistic people should be accommodated by our wider society?
Yes, they should. The one mistake that the most people tend to make is think autistic people are like handicapped or like have like or just function just less well than other people. But the truth is, autistic people is just being autistic is being a specialist in something. Like you're not a jack of all trades. You actually like you have you can have like greater talent than any other man on this planet. But like of course you can suck at something else that like every other people are better than you. It's like autistic people have a talent trade off,
Yeah.
and they should be accommodated because a specialist will always be better than a jack of all trades.
So then, my next question is: do you think things have gotten easier for autistic people over the years?
Well, I'd say it did because of two reasons. Even with the advent of self-diagnosis and the quirky stuff and all, it had a I believe it had a side effect of sensibility people to the cause. So, and also because people know that autism speaks is full of shit.
Mm-hmm.
So like people that tend to like they're widely known as the Peter for autists and fucking go for eugenics and probably will try to shoot me dead if they could. So which I do believe that autism speaks should really shut the fuck up for once.
Yeah.
But yeah, we been people and the wolf vaccine stuff is and this has been kind of like debunked long ago and the, all this drama surrounding autism, the mystery of autism has been like unraveled and people tend to understand the autism diagnosis better, which makes us which since the diagnosis is more understood, autism is more understood, and autistic people are in fact more understood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So then, my final question is: has it become easier to live autistic as an adult?
I do believe I'd say yes. And, because like mostly when you get like bad judgment from your artist, it's like misinformed children like that tend to grow out of it and just tend to not care anymore. And also, as an adult, you can generally fit better into society because you've mastered the art of masking, or just
Mm-hmm.
like being yourself is like not is just all right. Like for example, I have lots of people like me and they don't even know I'm autistic.
Yeah.
And some of them I told them and nothing's changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like of a fun fact and not like some life changing fact.
Yeah.
And this is why I see myself as some sort of paradox sometimes that I tend to want to be a champion of my people and yet I hardly act like them. But it's a topic for another day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do find that interesting too, because like if you hadn't told me that you had autism, and I almost never say this to anyone who has autism in my life, because I don't generally tend to believe it. But like if you didn't tell me that, I actually wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I mean I tend I've lived like most of my life with autistic people, so I can usually tell that some people might be autistic, but I have been wrong sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's someone who's like was playing deeply ingrained into autism stuff can have it wrong and but I do have some suspicions of people being autistic just because I have met so many autistic people.
Yeah.
But to but the biggest mistake I can make is generalize them. We cannot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and given the fact that it is a spectrum, it's definitely harder to generalize people in this
Yeah.
group. But yeah, so that's all of the questions then. Yeah, thank you very much for participating in this. As always,
Pleasure.
I've had a blast with this. Very, very fun to get to hear all the perspectives of everyone else. Because the answers I've been getting have been pretty diverse in terms of opinion, and I think that's great.
I mean, it's a pleasure. I will always stand for my autistic brethren.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Eric and Neo.
Hello.
Yeah, so this is the fourth interview that I'm doing now, and just as always, I'm going to start with the first question. Introduce yourself. What is your cultural background, your age, when you were diagnosed, your special interests?
So Not giving my real name, but my username is Air King Neo. I'm a cis white guy from the Midwest United States in my mid-20s. I haven't been diagnosed because it costs too much money, and the United States kind of has like a healthcare system that's kind of almost worse than a third world country, so that's just probably not happening for a while. But like it's been pretty obvious my whole life. In terms of special interests, I would say that I'm really into game design. I don't view it as like an idea coming up with process, but more of a problem solving process.
And then the second question is actually going to be quite interesting since you are self-diagnosed. But yeah, what are your opinions on people who self-diagnose?
Well, as someone who does myself, I can empathize with them. It takes a lot of time and money, and that's not something people always have. In some places, being officially designated can come with some difficulties. In the US political climate, apparently Elon Musk wants to put them in like camps or something, and that's like really scary. At least a friend warned me about that. So it's like, yeah, it can be a little scary at sometimes. So I totally understand the necessity to not be like have an official government or medical designation that sort of makes you seem like an other person to the rest of the world,
Yeah, that's definitely
just for your own
understandable.
safety.
And then my third question is, would you consider your life better or worse without autism?
Um, I have no idea. It certainly led to a lot of difficulties and alienation in my life, and while that is a lot of negativity I could unpack, it's also part of who I am, how I think, and what I value. And I can't imagine who I would be if that was all different. I would just.
So then my next question is, do you think there should be a cure for autism? I'm not getting any.
No, not at all. Oh, sorry, did you have a.
Yeah, I was wondering if like the audio was cutting out or something, but I guess it wasn't.
Oh, okay. To answer the question, no, not at all. Organizations that claim to, like Autism Speaks, that want to quote unquote cure autism, are actually just eugenics organizations. They're ran by people who aren't autistic, and it's ran by people who are afraid of autistic people. Not like afraid in the sense that, like, oh, they're bad people. Maybe they are in some ways, but more of a wow, I wish if I had a child, I wouldn't want them to be autistic because apparently that's like bad for the parent or something. But like the whole point of that organization and that concept of curing autism is really to just make it so autistic people don't exist at all. It's not actually trying to help them, it's trying to make them not exist. Kind of like gay people not existing, like conversion therapy. It's sort of that concept.
Yeah,
And
like
I'm sure that the answers to the future questions I have will elaborate more into this sort of concept.
yeah, because I definitely feel like a company like Autism Speaks, right, speaks more for like the parent, like the concerned and paranoid parents of autism, who don't know much about autism, as opposed to the actual autistic people that they claim to help. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, they're not ran by autistic people, so
yeah, and that's definitely gonna affect a lot about how an organization like that is ran, of course. Yeah, so then my next question is, do you consider autism to be a disability?
so I'm not a medical official, but in a personal sense, I want to say no. To me, autism means someone has a different way of thinking and processing, as opposed to how it's typically seen as a disability in communication. I can communicate very well with other people who are autistic or neurodivergent, much better than I can people who are neurotypical, which is why I believe it's simply a different way or mode of thinking.
Yeah, so then my next question is, do you think it's okay for autistic people, or even people in general, to say retard?
So, to be pretty blatant with it, I don't think autistic people should say the R word. There's a lot of historical and social baggage tied to the word, and it's used as a derogatory term for disabled people. When autistic people say the R slur, they're using it to refer to the mentally disabled, just trying to exclude themselves from the category of those who are mentally disabled. It's using the language in a way that's still derogatory towards mentally disabled people, just, with the sense that, like, oh, those are mentally disabled people, but me, an autistic person, no, I would never be. Like, that's still not good. That's still, derogatory and offensive towards that group of people. We have better insults out there. Just say stupid. It's really simple.
Yeah, I can definitely understand where you're coming from. And then my next question is, do you think autistic people should be accommodated by our wider society?
I mean, absolutely. A lot of society and social expectations are built on neurotypical norms, which often leads to a lot of difficulty for autistic people. If the world was designed better for all kinds of people, then everything would honestly just be better for everyone.
So then my next question is, do you think things have gotten easier for autistic people over the years?
I would say absolutely yes. And that might seem a little weird because, like, I did say that the current government administration for the United States is kind of not so great. But, like, in a long-term scheme of things, yes. And the reason for that is the internet. The internet lets people connect with each other and, of course, other minorities or other niche interests to help them find with community with each other. As the internet slowly spreads those ideas out, as people continue to interact, with all different sections of culture and backgrounds, more acceptance is gained. So, like, my parents don't really know anyone who lives in another country. Me, who uses the internet, I know people in England, Australia, France, other parts of Europe, places that speak English because language barriers are still a thing. But because of that, and even some in the Middle East, and because of that, I have different views on those people, as opposed to my parents. So, like, my parents are not the greatest when it comes to the Middle Eastern conflict, whereas I, who actually knows people in the Middle East, can actually humanize them better than my parents, and therefore be more understanding. So when it comes to autistic people, because it's easier to connect with people online, people are more likely today to know an autistic person, and same with transgender and other things, than they did in the past, which is why there's a bunch of old people today saying, well, when I was young, these people didn't exist. No, they existed. They just had to be in the closet or were treated, what's the word? They had to be repressed, or, you didn't even talk to them at all when they were young.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, there's more interaction, and that's letting people understand and empathize better with autistic people and other minorities.
Yeah. So then my final question is, has it become easier to live autistic as an adult?
The answer to that I have is, I don't know. I mean, I'm in my mid-20s, but to me an adult is someone who lives on their own, works a full-time job, or at least is wanting to, and pays their own bills. I'm over 18, but I don't do any of that, so I can't really say for certain.
Yeah, that's fair enough. If I was in college without like a full-time job, then I probably would be in the same position as you answering that question. Well, yeah, those are all my questions. Thank you very much for participating in this. It's been a lot of fun getting to listen to like all the different opinions from all my different friends, hearing what they had to say, and I feel like getting like a greater like diversity of opinion beyond just what I had to say has been highly beneficial for the purposes of what I'm trying to make with this year's video. So yeah, thank you a lot for this.
Yeah, sounds like a neat concept. There's not really I mean, I haven't seen much representation in terms of people talking about autistic people, aside from like people on Twitter who already get along with them. So a video that can help explain that further to people is pretty good.
Yeah. So I'll see you later then. My name is Aiden. I'm 19 years old and was diagnosed at the age of 2. I'm Canadian, and my special interest was pretending to be American for 18 years. I used to have the more extreme opinion that all self-diagnosis is bad due to the ways it distracts from the voices of those who are actually proven to be autistic. It doesn't help that sites like TikTok actively worship the idea of feigning disability for attention. That said, I've grown to be more sympathetic to at least some of this crowd due to how time-consuming getting a diagnosis is. Apparently, it's expensive in America too, but I don't really know or care since I'm Canadian. It's as a result of this that I'm fine with someone self-diagnosing while they look for an official diagnosis, as long as they keep quiet about advocating for it. Although, I'd be remiss to mention a more specific case like with my friend Erkin Neo. I didn't even know he was self-diagnosed before the interview because his autism just felt very obvious. So cases like those do exist, and I think it's fine for people in that position to advocate. I wouldn't be who I am without autism, so I wouldn't have an answer either way. For people who are able to live independently, I think that the idea of a cure is insulting, since curing my autism would be fundamentally changing who I am. For those who struggle more than me, however, I think the option should be available, albeit only when they're at a consenting age. I explained this earlier in the video, and my answer was yes. You already know my reasoning, though. If you've watched one of my Uncut videos, then you should be very familiar with how liberal my use of the word retard is, so that should make it clear where I stand. Like with any taboo word, you should be careful with your usage of it, and if you're in a room with someone who'd be discomforted or hurt by the word, you obviously shouldn't say it. Otherwise, I think it's fair game for anyone to say it. After all, it'd be pretty retarded to prevent someone from speaking their mind. While I do really want to be accommodated more, I don't think it's a realistic wish to have. I really dislike the idea of making other people act a certain way to support my needs, since I value authenticity a lot more than most. By the time you become an adult, I think if you're complaining about your job or friend group not accommodating your needs, then you just need to find another job or friend group. Granted, kids and teenagers don't exactly have that freedom, but that's exactly why special education rightfully exists to give autistic students a breather. Despite posing this question, I actually don't really know what my answer would be. I feel just as ignored for my autism as I did as a kid, however, so I suppose my answer would be a no. The answer is yes, but I'll wait until the end of the video to explain why. Oh geez, what a wonderful segue that turned out to be.